Marvelous Mrs. Maisel ended today. Not just the season, but the whole series. I've come here to sing the show's praises in the past, but sticking the landing on what is as perfect as a show can be up to this point, not an easy task. There will be spoilers in this video. I'll do my best to keep them to a minimum. The final season introduced something new for the show: time jumps. We got a look at the life of Midge and those around her through the years. We learned that both Midge and Susie had success in their careers. Her parents are still around for at least another couple decades. Joel ends up in prison, and most shocking of all, Midge and Susie are estranged. It was thrilling to get these glimpses as to what everyone was doing. This is also a great example of how experiencing a show week to week and not binging the whole thing in a day can really pay off. The time between episodes, the story was constantly replaying in my head. What do these glimpses into Midge's future mean? Is Abe still around? What happened to Joel? It was starting to feel like the show couldn't possibly wrap up every thread with a neat little bow on it, but creator Amy Sherman Palladino had not yet steered me wrong, so I felt the audience was still in safe hands. The final episode opens on a downer. Jack Kirby is back doing a phenomenal job bringing the legendary Lenny Bruce to life. By 1965, when the finale opens, Bruce was on a downward spiral he would not recover from before his untimely death the following year. Susie intervenes with the help of Midge in the shadows, but no luck. The way that the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel world brushes up against history without rewriting it is one of my favorite aspects of the series. I wasn't sure if Lenny Bruce would show up again, but with him being such a huge part of history, stand-up comedy, and Midge's life, I'm glad he did. So we're back in 1961. Susie is reeling from the embarrassment of having to beg her ex, Hetty Ford, to talk to her husband, Gordon Ford, a kind of Johnny Carson stand-in, to letting Midge on the show. Midge getting on the show is set up to be a surefire way to launch her into superstardom. Midge and Susie have a heart-to-heart in an amazingly cool automat restaurant, and Susie comes out to Midge. She explains her history, the history with Hetty, and this moment is handled pitch perfectly. We get to know Susie a bit more, we get her history, we get to know why she has a voice in Hetty's ear at all, and the two friends get a nice bonding moment. This bonding moment was exactly what I needed after being devastated by the news that the two eventually will have a falling out. Next is a great sequence that doesn't do a ton to move the story forward, but it does let us spend some time with the characters that complete Midge's world. Abe gets to tell Midge that he knows this is a big deal, getting on the show, and that he's excited for her. Her mother is called by everyone in her orbit, Midge's orbit, to get her to the taping of the show. Abe and Rose have this hilarious sequence where they get to take to the streets of New York to overshare their situation to all the cabbies trying to find a ride, and the fact that the overall narration takes a break doesn't really bother me at all. I didn't want the show to end, so spending more time in its world, spending more time with these characters, served me just fine. Also, I never get tired of the recreation of 1960s New York City. Midge's appearance on the Gordon Ford show isn't what she expected it to be. Midge won't be appearing as a stand-up comic doing her thing. Instead, she'll be introduced as a lady writer. She'll get a surface-level interview on the side of Gordon Ford's set. He really wants to hammer home the point that she is not a real guest. There must have been a lot going on in the writer's room for Mrs. Maisel to talk about who would appear on the show with her. We get astronaut Alan Shepard, who helped cement the time frame in a very convincing way and also kind of show the gravity of what the Ford show is, and a very convincing Carol Burnett impersonator who does a song that at that time in Carol Burnett's career launched her into superstardom. Carol Burnett had to be one of many huge inspirations for the character of Midge Maisel. So when Midge does what she does best, takes over the conversation and starts working in some jokes, she wins over the audience, but Ford cuts the segment early. During a frantic and very long-feeling commercial break, Midge's mind is whirling. The camera clues us in as to what her thought process is, and a wave of emotions and excitement hits everyone who's been following the show up to this point. Midge is going to once again throw caution to the wind, grab a mic, and do her thing. Even though we got a flash forward showing that Midge has made it professionally, this moment isn't without tension. Through the course of the series, whenever things seem to be going on an upswing for Midge and Susie, something inevitably, usually Midge, would come and derail the duo. Alright, to be fair, we were all pretty sure that this time it would work. If for no other reason than the runtime of the episode didn't really allow for another fall and climb back up to success. Before taking the plunge, we get another emotional scene between Midge and Susie. A familiar scenario before Midge is about to perform, and it's a sure sign that the two are in it together, not just professionally, but as friends. Their ritualistic tagline, "Tits Up," was saved for this moment, and it really pays off. Midge, of course, does it. She grabs the mic and gets 4 incredible minutes of stand-up comedy. It's clear her time honing her craft and the splash of cold water delivered by Lenny Bruce at the end of season 4 are all rolling around in her head. She's funny, poignant, topical, inspirational, and brings it all around again, funny. She has something to say, but still wants people to laugh. As Midge is performing, the camera slowly revolves around her. The lighting changes to isolate Midge, but in the way she would want, the way a stand-up comic is up on stage all alone, just with their craft. The sound editors even add in some extra background noise that has nothing to do with the Gordon Ford studio and really gives you that sense memory back to the Gaslight where Midge first performed. She has the audience, her office mates, the other writers, and eventually, even Ford can't deny her skill. She's welcomed onto the interview couch, Ford's real set for a proper interview as a real guest. Even Ford's quiet firing of her as a writer is done in joy. Ford is the one who ultimately dubs her the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Surprisingly, the next scene doesn't jump forward in time again. It actually jumps back 6 months to the big night in the snowstorm with Midge and Lenny Bruce. Midge and Bruce are in an overcrowded Chinese restaurant. Bruce is back to his sharp, funny, witty self. He and Midge talk as friends, that rapid-fire Sherman Palladino dialogue. And Bruce is one of her, again, biggest, or maybe second biggest next to Susie, cheerleaders. I didn't mind this extra scene, even though, once again, we weren't really moving the plot forward. It's a very sweet moment, and it gives us the gift of the last time seeing Jack Kirby's Lenny Bruce, not as a downer, but as a positive memory. It also explains a small setup from a few scenes before, letting us know that while Bruce couldn't be at the Gordon Ford show in person, he was with Midge in a way. The final time jump brings us to 2005, the farthest the show is going to take us. Midge is with her team, still a workaholic. We're reminded, subtly, that Midge accepted long ago she would have the career she wanted or the husband and kids and that kind of traditional life she thought she wanted, sacrificing her personal relationships for career. Joel's not around, though Midge does keep a picture of them from their wedding nearby. Her parents are both dead by this point, and her kids are living their own lives. We get many panning shots of Midge's enormous residence, staffed up with help, but no friends or family. She's living in isolation, surrounded by people. Midge walks into a small, messy room, looks more like an apartment than a room in this palatial house. There, she calls Susie. Susie's also living luxury, and is also alone. The two talk like they always have. The sharp dialogue Palladino has given us for the 5 fantastic years is in full swing. The two of them sync up to watch TV together, but it's more about the senseless banter. This really hit home for me because these in-between moments, these almost mundane moments, are what our lives are really made up of. Those are the things we really hang on to with the people around us. So it feels fitting to leave these two lifelong friends and a whole series based on their friendship behind in the same fashion. The screen fades to black under the sound of the two of them laughing together at some ridiculous joke that they're building. To say Amy Sherman Palladino stuck the landing on the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I think is an understatement. I love this series all the way through. I love this finale. I plan on rewatching the whole thing in the next couple weeks just to really take it all in now that I have the full story. It's an Amazon Prime original, all episodes available now. I recommend you check it out.